The twin suns of Zelveron shimmered in the sky, painting the palace balcony in golden fire. The great gathering of royal suitors stood in silence, each dressed in fine armor or glowing robes, all hoping to win the heart of Princess Valera. She stood above them, her long silver hair flowing like water, her violet eyes scanning the faces of warriors, diplomats and nobles. She was calm, confident, and utterly amused behind her. Her attendant stood still, but her voice rang out clear. "Only one shall win me," she said with a playful smile, "but it will not be through war, wealth, or words." Gasps and murmurs ran through the crowd. She raised her hand, silencing all. "I offer a game," she said. "A simple one." Jack Rivers stood far in the back, half hidden near a marble pillar. He wasn't a prince or warrior, just a human translator from Earth, assigned to record diplomatic meetings between the Terran fleet and the Zelveron Empire. He never planned to stand among royalty, but somehow his feet refused to move, as if pulled by something stronger than logic. Princess Valera smiled, her voice teasing now. "If anyone can guess my true name, the name only my heart knows, I will marry them on the spot." The crowd gasped again. This time louder. A royal name was sacred, ancient, and hidden. Only the chosen mate could speak it, and no one had. Not in centuries. Many believed it was a myth, a joke told during formal gatherings to amuse nobles. But Valera was serious. She waved her hand, and a golden flame formed in the air, writing the challenge for all to see. Guess the name, win the bride. The first suitor, a general from the fire planet, stepped forward. He bowed deeply, then spoke a name that sounded like thunder. Valera blinked, then shook her head with a soft laugh. "No," she said simply, and he stepped back. Embarrassed one by one, the others tried, offering names from ancient poems, names of forgotten gods, even names from her own court. But Valera shook her head each time. Never angry, always amused. It was a game to her, a puzzle no one would ever solve until Jack spoke. He didn't even mean to. He wasn't sure why the word left his mouth, but it did. A name, soft and strange, rolled off his tongue like he had known it in a dream. Valera. Everything stopped. The air grew cold, and the wind stilled. Valera turned sharply, her eyes wide, her face pale. The courtiers gasped, and the guards stepped forward as if danger had entered the palace. But the princess raised her hand again, this time not to play but to protect. "Who said that?" she whispered, though her eyes already locked on him. Jack stepped forward slowly, unsure if he'd just made a mistake. The guards blocked him, but Valera ordered, "Let him pass." He walked across the marble floor, his boots sounding loud against the silence. "Say it again," she said softly, her voice trembling now. Jack looked at her, confused but calm. "Valera," he repeated. "I don't know what it means, I just felt it." The princess stepped back, her hands shaking. "No one should know that," she said, "not even I remembered it. Until now." She turned to the sky, eyes wide as if seeing stars that weren't there before. "That name, it was mine before I became Princess Valera," she whispered. "Before I was born into the royal line." Whispers filled the balcony. Nobles panicking, some calling it witchcraft, others shouting that the human cheated, but the royal seer stepped forward, an old being with a face of crystal and smoke. He looked at Jack with deep, unreadable eyes. "The bond has spoken," he said slowly. "This human carries a piece of her forgotten soul." Valera stared at Jack, breathless, as if time itself had frozen. She didn't laugh now, she didn't speak. Instead, she took a step closer and asked one question, not as a ruler, but as a woman lost between fate and fear. "Who are you, really?" And Jack, still unsure, still just a translator from Earth, could only whisper, "I think I'm the one who was meant to find you." Above them, the suns dimmed behind a passing cloud, and in that moment, the royal balcony no longer felt like a place of games. It felt like the beginning of something ancient, something powerful, and something no one, not even the princess, had truly expected. Jack stood in the quiet of his guest room, staring at the ceiling. The memory of that name, Valera, echoed in his mind like a song he had never learned but always known. He couldn't sleep, not after what had happened on the balcony, the way her eyes widened, the way the seer had spoken, the way the crowd had turned from laughter to silence. It felt like he had just stepped into a story older than time itself. The palace was massive, a maze of glowing corridors, shadowed halls and floating staircases. As the stars rose outside the glass dome, Jack's curiosity grew too strong. He wrapped a dark cloak around his shoulders and slipped out of his chamber. walking quietly through the winding halls. He didn't know where he was going, until his feet brought him to a strange black door with golden markings. There was no guard, no lock, no sign, but the air felt heavy around it. Like it was holding its breath, he pushed the door gently, and it opened with a soft sigh. Inside, the room stretched farther than it should have. Rows of glowing shelves floated above the ground, filled with books, crystals, scrolls, and strange silver plates. This was no ordinary library. This was a place of ancient secrets, a place the living weren't supposed to enter. Jack stepped inside, heart pounding. As he walked between the shelves, he felt the air hum around him, like whispers dancing between the pages. He reached out to a large book with a cover made of shimmering scales. When he opened it, the words shifted across the page, then stopped and settled into English. True Names, the title said. His fingers trembled as he read more. It spoke of the Alaron Rite, a bond between soulmates in the time before empires. It said that only two beings connected by fate could awaken a name of the heart once spoken aloud. The bond would begin and could never be undone. He flipped pages faster, but the room suddenly filled with a soft blue light. Someone was watching him. He turned quickly, ready to run, but stopped when he saw a figure floating toward him. It was an old alien woman, with crystal skin and one glowing eye. She wore dark robes and moved like she wasn't fully real. "You should not be here," she said calmly. Her voice both kind and sharp. Jack bowed slightly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break the rules. You spoke her name," the woman interrupted. "And now the old magic stirs again." Jack nodded slowly. "I don't even know how I knew it," he said. "It just came to me." The woman stepped closer, studying his face. "Sometimes when souls are torn apart, the echo finds its way home," she whispered. Then she looked at the book in his hands and added, "But if you truly wish to know her name, not just say it, you will need more than pages." Jack frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" he asked. The woman's glowing eye flickered like a dying star. "You'll need her dreams," she said quietly. "Only in her dreams does the full truth sleep." Before Jack could ask anything more, the woman raised her hand, the room darkened, and in a blink, Jack found himself outside the library door again. The black door was now gone, as if it had never existed. Back in his room, Jack sat down, breathing hard. Dreams. He would have to enter her dreams, but how? He was just a human, a translator, not a mystic still. Something inside him whispered that he was already part of the dream. The next morning, the palace was different. The guards were tense, the nobles whispered, and Princess Valera hadn't left her chambers. Jack walked the halls, pretending to be lost, trying to find her again, but she was gone from sight. Then, while crossing a quiet corridor, he felt a presence behind him. He turned and saw her, Valera, alone, no guards, no crown, just her silver hair flowing in the soft light. She looked at him with something like fear, and something like recognition. "You said my name," she whispered. Jack nodded. "I didn't mean to, but it felt right," he said. She stepped closer, her voice trembling now. "I had a dream, long ago, of a man I would never meet." "Who would say that name?" She looked into his eyes. "It was you," she whispered. "But I don't understand why." Jack felt his heart pound. "I don't either," he admitted. "But I think we're meant to find out together." Valera hesitated, then turned her head slightly. "There's a place," she said. "A mirror that shows more than faces." She looked back at him, serious now. "If you want answers, meet me there at moonfall." Then she was gone, her footsteps soft as the wind. Jack stood alone in the hallway, knowing the path ahead was no longer about guessing her name. It was about discovering who he truly was, and what secret had bound them across stars and lifetimes. The palace was quiet after moonfall. Soft glowing lanterns floated in the air like sleepy stars. The halls were silent, as if holding their breath for something strange to happen. And something was happening, deep inside the princess's chamber, beyond the golden doors, behind the soft velvet curtains. Princess Valera was dreaming, but this dream was different. It was not light and floating like most of her sleep visions. This dream was heavy, almost real. She saw herself running through a forest of silver trees. A name echoed in the wind, Valera L. She turned, searching for who called it, but all she saw was shadows. Then suddenly, a voice, Jack's voice, whispered the name again, gently, like a memory returning home. She woke up with a sharp gasp, her skin damp, her heart racing. Her hands clutched the edge of her bed as she sat up, trembling. How could a human, a stranger from another world, walk through her dreams? How could he speak a name that was never written, never spoken, never taught? She stood, wrapping a silver shawl around her shoulders. She needed answers, but more than that, she needed to see him again. Not as a princess, not as royalty, just as... Valira, meanwhile. Jack waited near the old spiral stair that led to the forgotten tower. She had told him to meet her at moonfall, and though part of him still questioned if this was a dream, he came anyway. Because something inside him said this was not about winning a bet anymore. This was about truth. This was about who he really was. The door opened softly behind him and he turned. There she stood. No crown, no guards, no armor, just her. Her eyes found his immediately, and for a moment neither spoke. It felt like they were standing inside a bubble where time didn't move. "Follow me," she said quietly. They climbed the tower together, one slow step at a time. The stairs were narrow, the air cold, but Jack didn't care. He just kept watching her from the corner of his eye. She looked strong yet unsure, powerful yet searching. At the top, the chamber waited, round and silver, filled with starlight. In the center stood an ancient device, a mirror unlike any Jack had seen before. Its frame was made of glowing vines, and the glass didn't reflect his face. Instead, it shimmered like a still lake under the moon, moving softly even though no wind blew. Valira stepped forward and placed her hand on the edge. "The mirror of names," she said, her voice soft. "It shows the truth behind the soul." She looked at Jack, her voice shaking slightly. "I've never shown this to anyone before." Jack stepped beside her. Curious but nervous. "What will it show us?" he asked. She turned her eyes to the mirror and whispered, "Only what we carry inside." She touched the mirror, and it began to glow. Jack followed her lead. Placing his hand next to hers, suddenly the mirror rippled like water, and images began to form. A woman with silver eyes, standing beside a man in strange armor. They held hands, smiled, whispered something, then vanished. New images appeared of Valira as a child, staring up at the stars, crying at night for someone she couldn't name. Then Jack, alone on Earth, a boy always feeling like something was missing. He saw his mother once tell him, "You were always different, Jack. Like you belonged somewhere else, finally." The mirror showed both of them side by side, but not in the palace. Not in this lifetime. It showed them in another world. Another time, where they stood before a tree of light, their hands bound by glowing threads. They had once been something more, something ancient, something lost. Valira stepped back, shaking. This is impossible," she said. Jack turned to her, breathing hard. "We knew each other before," he whispered, "didn't we?" She nodded slowly, eyes full of emotion. I think you were the one I was promised to," she said. "But something happened. We were torn apart and I was reborn without knowing." Jack stepped closer, not touching her, just near enough for her to feel his warmth. "Maybe the name was the key," he said. "Maybe speaking it unlocked everything again." Valira looked at him, heart pounding. "I should be afraid," she whispered. "But I'm not," Jack smiled gently. "Neither am I." She turned her face toward the mirror one last time, watching as the image faded away. Then she looked back at Jack, her voice trembling but sure. "I want to know more," she said. "Then let's find the truth together," Jack replied. As they left the tower side by side, neither spoke again. But something unspoken now bound them, stronger than titles, stronger than planets, and in the shadows, watching from above, the crystal-eyed librarian whispered to herself, "The stars remember, even when we do not." Jack couldn't sleep again that night. Even after leaving the tower with Valira, his mind spun in circles, the images in the mirror, the visions of another life and the feeling in his chest. It was too much. He had come to Zelveron as a simple translator, nothing more. But now he felt like he was standing on the edge of something enormous, something ancient, something meant to happen. He sat near his window, watching the stars. The moons of Zelveron floated silently in the night sky, glowing soft purple and blue. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing. He couldn't walk away now. Not from Valira and not from the truth. Elsewhere in the palace, Valira stood alone in her private garden. A soft breeze rustled the glowing leaves and moonlight touched her face. She placed a hand on her chest, feeling her heartbeat. She was a princess, trained to lead, trained to rule. Yet here she was, shaken by a name in a mirror. A human had spoken a word that made the walls inside her break. It wasn't just a name, it was a memory hidden in her blood, buried in her soul. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Who were we? Before all this?" The next morning the palace was loud again. The suitors, who had failed to guess her name, now whispered dark things. Some called Jack a liar. Others said he used tricks. The High Council of Elders demanded answers from the princess. One of them even warned, "If this bond is real, it may undo the sacred traditions." Valira stood before them without fear, but her heart ached. Traditions were important. Yes, but so was truth, and the truth was calling louder than ever before. Later that evening, she sent a quiet message to Jack. "Meet me at the mirror one final time before the council decides your fate." Jack came without hesitation. The tower felt colder than before, and the starlight didn't reach as deep. But when he saw her standing there alone again, it warmed him from within. She turned to face him, her eyes serious. "Tonight, we go deeper," she said. "We will not just look at who we were. We will ask the mirror what we are now." Jack stepped forward and placed his hand on the mirror's frame. Valira did the same, their hands inches apart. The mirror shimmered, then went black. Silence, then slowly, the mirror lit up with golden light, but this time, it showed not a past life, but a choice. Two paths appeared, one where they walked away from each other, and the light around them faded. The second path showed them standing together, facing storms, enemies, fire, but never letting go. It was not an easy path, but it was powerful. Glowing with fire and stars, Jack reached toward the second path, but the mirror flashed. Words appeared, ancient letters glowing in red, to walk this path. The bond must be named aloud in the circle of flame, and once named, there is no return. Valira stepped back, her breath catching. "That's the ritual," she whispered, "the ancient rite of binding." She looked at Jack, her voice trembling. "If we speak that name before the circle, we become one forever." Jack nodded slowly. "I'm not afraid," he said, "but you need to be sure." Valira turned her face away. "Sornstan, if I choose you, I lose the throne," she said. "I lose everything I was raised for." Jack said nothing for a moment, then quietly replied, "Then don't choose me." Her head turned sharply toward him, shocked. "I'm not asking you to sacrifice your world," he continued. "I just want to know if your heart remembers mine." She stared at him, eyes filling with something more than tears. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "You never were." Suddenly the mirror flashed again, showing one more image, a small child, half human, half Zelveron, standing in a field of light. Jack and Valira stood behind the child. Smiling, hands joined, Valira gasped, "That's our future," she said, her voice shaking. The mirror faded to black once more. She looked at Jack, her voice barely a breath. "If we take this step, the council will fight it." "They can try," Jack said, "but truth always finds a way." They left the tower together, walking slowly through the empty halls. Behind them, the mirror of names remained silent, but its light still glowed faintly, as if watching over them. Far below, the council chambers roared with angry voices, and in the shadows one elder whispered to another, "If he speaks the name before the flames, the ancient law binds her to him. Then we must stop the ceremony," the other hissed, "before the stars witness it." The royal council met in secret that night. 12 elders sat around a round stone table lit by golden flames. They wore silver masks, hiding faces filled with fear and pride. One of them slammed his hand down. "This cannot be allowed," he said. "A human binding with our princess? It would undo everything our bloodlines protect," another elder whispered. The mirror confirmed it. "He carries her soul echo." "But we control the law," said the oldest one, his voice cracking like old stone. "Then we change the law," someone said. "No," the oldest elder replied slowly. "We stop the ceremony before the name is spoken, or there will be no turning back." Meanwhile, Jack sat in the palace garden under a glowing tree. The stars above him felt closer now, almost like they were watching. He held the name in his heart, Valira. It had changed everything. He didn't know where it came from, or why it belonged to him, but he knew it was true. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Slow and heavy, he turned and saw her again. The old woman from the library, with the crystal skin and glowing eye. She moved like smoke, but her presence was solid, like the weight of time itself. "You should not be alone," she said quietly. Jack stood surprised. "I remember you," he said. "You showed me the book, the scroll." "The dream path," she nodded, then stepped closer. "I am called the Truth Keeper," she said. And I was once bound to the stars. Just like you. Jack blinked, unsure what she meant. She sat beside him on the stone bench, her robe folding like mist. There is something you must know, she said. Before you speak her name in the circle of flame. Jack listened closely, his chest tight. If you complete the bond, she said, the ancient magic will return. Not just between you and the princess, but across the galaxy, bloodlines, oaths, and power built on lies will begin to break. Because your bond will awaken the old ways. Jack looked at her, confused but calm. Is that a bad thing? He asked. The Truth Keeper's glowing eye flickered. It depends on who you ask, she said. The council built this empire by hiding the old truths. They say it's about honor and purity, but it was always about control. Your union with Valera will break their chains. Jack lowered his head, thinking, why me? He asked, why a human? She looked at him deeply. Because your kind has something they lost long ago. Free will not ruled by fear. Love not bound by status. You carry the heart they buried. Jack felt a chill in his chest. What if I fail her? He asked. You won't, she said, because you already see her not as a princess, but as herself. Then she stood, her voice now more serious. But listen well, before the ceremony begins, the council will try to stop you. They may use lies, force, or worse. Magic. Jack stood too, his hands in fists. Then I'll be ready, he said. They can't stop what's already in motion. The Truth Keeper placed a crystal stone in his hand. This will guide you to the circle when the time is right. Follow the light, not the path. Then she faded into the shadows, vanishing like a breath in the wind. Jack held the stone tight, feeling its warmth. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew this was more than a love story. It was a fight for truth. At that moment, far across the palace, Valera stood in her private chamber. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, strong, royal, but uncertain. She touched her own face and whispered, who am I? Without the crown? Her lady-in-waiting, a quiet girl with blue skin and golden eyes. Entered carefully, Your Highness, she said. They say the council will block the naming ceremony. Valera turned, her voice firm. Let them try, she said. This bond was written in the stars before any law was carved. The girl bowed, but looked up with worry. If they accuse you of breaking tradition? Valera stepped forward, her eyes glowing softly. Then I'll rewrite tradition, she said. With him beside me, she walked to her balcony, the same one where the bet began, looking out into the dark sky. She whispered, you changed everything. Jack, below the balcony in the shadows, a council spy, listened silently. He turned and vanished into the darkness, his orders clear. The twin suns began to set, painting the sky in orange and violet. The palace glowed brighter than ever, lit with fire lanterns, silver flames, and thousands of watching eyes. Tonight was the night of the name ceremony. It was once only a royal formality, a game, a tradition, but tonight it meant everything. Trumpets echoed through the halls as nobles gathered. The royal court lined the grand staircase, all dressed in shimmering robes. Even the outer world sent their representatives, all eager to witness what they thought was just another show. But beneath their polished smiles was confusion. And beneath that, fear. Princess Valera stood behind the palace doors, her heart pounding harder than ever. Her long silver gown shimmered with light drawn from her own skin. But she didn't feel powerful, she felt alive next to her. An old priest held the ceremonial scroll. He glanced at her with tired eyes. You're sure? He whispered. Valera nodded once. If I run now, I'll never forgive myself, she said softly. Meanwhile, Jack walked alone through the garden maze, holding the glowing crystal stone the Truth Keeper had given him. It pulsed with warmth, guiding him toward a hidden entrance only few knew existed. He didn't trust the council, and he wasn't about to walk into a trap through the front gate. Guards were everywhere, eyes scanning, whispers rising. But Jack followed the light, his steps calm, his heart steady. He reached a small door carved into stone. Overgrown with vines, the crystal glowed brighter, then dimmed. He knew he was close, pushing open the door. He entered the sacred path beneath the palace, the hidden tunnel once used by royal protectors. Back in the grand chamber, the ceremony was beginning. The flame circle in the center burned white and tall, spinning slowly. It was said the fire could only be crossed by two who carried a true bond. If the bond was false, the fire would rise and push them back. Only truth could pass through flame untouched. The priest stepped into the circle and spoke. Let all who seek the bond of names step forward. The crowd hushed. The nobles looked around. The council leaned forward, waiting to see if the human had run away in fear. But the grand doors didn't open. Silence stretched, a few nobles chuckled, shaking their heads. The human has no honor, one said. Another whispered. He fled like the rest. Valera stood frozen, her fingers trembling. Had they stopped him? Had they captured him before he could arrive? Her heart cracked, but she stood tall, refusing to show pain. Then, a sound. Soft at first. Footsteps on polished stone from the side of the chamber. A forgotten door opened and Jack stepped through, walking straight into the flame circle. Gasps filled the air. The priest's mouth dropped open. Even the council elders stood in shock. Jack looked at Valera, smiling gently. I never run, he said. Not when something this real calls me. Valera walked slowly toward him. Step by step, the fire between them spun brighter but did not burn them. Instead, it lowered slightly, as if bowing. The priest unrolled the scroll. Speak now the name of the soul, he said. If it is true, the fire will make way. If it is false, the bond will break before it begins. Jack looked into Valera's eyes. He didn't need to think, didn't need to search, he just remembered. His voice was soft, full of emotion. Valera, he whispered. That is your true name. The flames surged, not in anger but in light. They opened in a perfect ring. A path between them formed. Gasps and cries echoed across the hall. The crowd backed away, terrified and amazed. The priest dropped the scroll, trembling. It's real, he said, the bond. It's pure. Valera stepped through the fire, meeting Jack in the center. When her hand touched his, the entire flame circle exploded upward, then vanished. Only the two of them stood in the center, wrapped in light but in the shadows. The council elders watched with cold eyes. One of them whispered, If the fire accepted him, we cannot deny the bond, but we can still destroy it, another said, his fingers curling into a fist. We end it, before it spreads. The ceremony ended in chaos, nobles whispering, guards unsure whether to kneel or act. But Valera raised her voice, strong and clear. This is no game, she said. This is no trick. This is truth chosen not by blood but by fate. Jack stood beside her, his hand still in hers, and the people, confused, scared, amazed, could not look away. The grand chamber echoed with stunned silence. The flames had vanished. But the light between Jack and Valera still lingered. Their hands were joined, their eyes locked. Something ancient had awakened, something no law could stop. But the silence didn't last long. A sharp voice broke through it. This is an insult to the royal bloodline. An elder stepped forward, his silver mask shining in the torchlight. We cannot allow a human to bond with the heir to the throne. Other council members nodded, their faces twisted behind their masks. The bond is real, one admitted, but it must be undone. The people will not accept it, said another. They fear change. Jack stood calmly, but inside he felt the tension rising. He had passed every test, spoken the name, stood in the flame, but now he realized the hardest part was not proving the bond, it was protecting it. Valera stepped forward, her voice firm. You fear truth because you built your power on lies, she said. This bond was written before your laws. You do not own me, the crowd gasped. Some bowed their heads in shame, others looked away. But one noble woman, a matron from the House of Stars, stepped forward. She speaks the truth, the matron said. I felt the bond burn in the fire, none of us can deny it. Still, the elders refused to back down. Then we invoke the final right, one declared. The bond must survive the trial of fate. If it is truly meant to be, it must face judgment. Valera's eyes narrowed. You would risk our lives to protect your pride? But Jack touched her hand gently. We accept, he said quietly. Let them test us. The final rite was ancient, forgotten by most. Remembered by few, it was a ritual of truth, not battle. The bonded pair would enter the Hall of Echoes, where the bond would be mirrored by the stars. If the stars rejected them, they would be lost, swallowed by void. But if accepted, they would emerge not just as bonded, but as something more. That night, the Hall of Echoes opened for the first time in 1,000 years. A vast space carved into the mountain behind the palace, filled with glowing stones and whispering winds. Only two could enter. Valera and Jack stepped through the gates, hand in hand as the watchers lit the ancient runes. Inside, the hall was silent, no walls, no floor, just endless reflection. They walked forward, and their reflections walked beside them, then ahead of them, then around them. Jack began to feel dizzy. "Where are we?" he asked. Valera whispered, "This is where souls are weighed." Suddenly a voice echoed, neither male nor female, not loud, but everywhere. "Why have you come?" Valera answered first. "To prove our bond is true," the voice returned. "Why does a princess lower herself to love a human?" Jack's hand tightened in hers, but Valera stood tall. "Because love is not lower," she said. "It lifts, it heals, it dares." Then the voice turned to Jack. "And why do you claim what was never meant for your kind?" Jack closed his eyes and answered with his heart. "I didn't come to claim her," he said. "I came because I couldn't turn away from her. Her pain, her strength, her soul, called mine. I don't care about crowns or power, I just want her. All of her." The silence that followed was long and deep. Then the reflections changed, the ones around them faded, replaced by a single glowing image, themselves standing beneath a sky filled with stars. Holding hands, surrounded by light, the voice spoke once more. "The bond is whole. Let the stars witness." In a flash, they were back, standing in the palace circle. Surrounded by light, the elders fell silent, the people bowed. The ritual had spoken. Valera looked around the room and declared, "Let this be the start of a new age, not ruled by fear but by truth. No more lies. No more chains." Jack stood beside her, not as a guest, not as a stranger, but as her chosen, her equal, her bond. The truth keeper stood in the shadows. A small smile on her face, she whispered to herself, "The stars remember." Later that night, as the palace quieted and the stars shone brighter than ever, Jack and Valera stood alone on the royal balcony where it all began. She laughed softly and looked at him. "You were supposed to guess my name," she teased. "I didn't guess," Jack said, pulling her close. "I remembered." And as the moons rose high above them, glowing with soft silver light, their story, the story of a princess and a human who dared to love beyond laws, became legend. A bond written not in scrolls but in stars.